Everybody, it's your boy Joe, the Wealth Architect, and I often get asked, where should I invest my money, right? It's not a far-fetched question, given that I've been teaching personal finance for the past 30 years, so it's not nothing far-fetched about it. But what people are really asking is, how can I make money? Tell me where I should put my money so that in a year's time, I can make a lot of money, right? I can double my money. I can triple or whatever. I can make a lot of money. That is what people are really asking. But the question they should be asking, or the focus that they should have, is not where to invest their money, but where to invest in general. The question really, or the point really, is that the first place to invest is in yourself. It's in yourself, right? And it may sound cliche, but it is the truth. Before I ever invested a dime in the stock market, in mutual funds, in index funds, I invested in my education, right? Meaning I became financially literate over time, right? And I continue to be on that journey. So it's not a matter of where you put your money, it's what you do with your time, right? It is what you're reading, what you're listening to, or whatever the case might be. How are you becoming financially literate? Because as I mentioned before, it's not about money, it's about mindset. And part of the getting your mindset right when it comes to money is learning about how money works, learning about how the stock market works, learning about how investments work, learning about the psychology of investing, right? The psychology of money. And so it's not a matter of, some simple get rich quick scheme or anything like that. That's not what this is about. That's not what investing is about. That's gambling. That's something different, right? And we want to make that distinction. So at the end of the day, the first investment is in yourself. I started investing, the very first time was in 1994 while incarcerated, right? Upstate New York. And I invested, I think it was $300, and it was a mutual fund, forgot the name, American Century or something like that, right? I still have the certificate, but before I did that was in 1994. I started reading about investing, and then I said, I'm going to try my hand at it. I had it, a couple $100. I was incarcerated. I was thinking long term, and I said, okay, I'm going to take a chance. After having read several books about investing, after listening to a show, it was called Money Talk. I still remember that. It was a really good show. It was on an AM station, and I listened to it religiously. I believe I'm not sure if it was every Saturday, but I listened to it religiously, and people would call in. It was a great show, really great show. The host was really good. And people would call into the show and ask all these investing, questions, investing related questions. And after a couple of months, I was able to answer the question. I would answer the question before the host did. And often I would be right. And that's how I knew that I was really getting the hang of this, right? Of how investing works, the psychology of it, different terminology, all those things like that. And it was only after I felt very confident that I made my first investment, and then made other investments since then. And even now, like I said, I'm a lifelong student of personal finance, so I'm always learning, always trying to get a grasp of how different things are interconnected. Interest rates, inflation, and different things going on in the world, right? How they affect my investments or investments in general. So I'm always thinking along those lines. And so my point is that it's not about like a, what they say, kind of plug and play type of thing, right? Where you put in some money in any investment or in some hot investment, and then all of a sudden, just excuse me for the sound, the background, that you put in this money, and then you wake up a year later, and then all of a sudden you're quote unquote instant millionaire. That's not what this is about, right? It's about constantly learning, always being a student of personal finance, right? So it's investing in yourself. That is the first and should be the last, so to speak, investment, not any particular monetary thing, right? So let's keep that in mind. And hold on a second. Got somebody. We're in New York, so you know, people, it's a little crazy. People get loud and all that other crazy stuff, right? For no reason at all. And but anyway, as I was saying, at the end of the day, we want to invest in ourselves, right? That is the key thing. Now, what does that look like? What does that look like, right? So for me, what that looks like is each morning I have a morning routine, right? Morning routine. I get up, usually I wake up about anywhere between 5 and 6, depending on when I go to sleep the night before. And I have some water, right? I make sure I stay hydrated. Sometimes I'll have yogurt or something like that, just, you know, if I'm feeling a little hungry, before I actually have like breakfast. And then I pick up a book. And it's usually personal finance or business. It's one or the other, personal finance or business. So I'm investing in myself before I do anything else, right? I'm investing in myself. Right now I'm currently reading a book about Steve Jobs, right? But like I said, I vacillate, I go back and forth from reading about a half hour, right? Just kickstart my day, right? I don't drink coffee, so I just, like I said, I'll have some water, and then I will read, and I time myself. I put the timer on my phone, because then, for a half hour, because then after that, I then will get into, usually I have like about 3 things that I want to accomplish for the day. So I begin item number 1, right? And that's basically how I start my day. That's how I start my day. So let me see if I can get across the street. So that morning routine is how I ensure that I am always staying educated, right? That I'm always mentally stimulated. Right now I'm heading to the gym, so I start with the mind first, right? The first part of my morning, and then I start the body, work the body, right? And then I actually get into my 2 or 3 things that I want to accomplish for the day. So that's how I do it. Again, the main point that I want to get across is that you don't want to have people tell you where to invest, right? People ask me all the time, oh, where should I invest? I got $1,000, I have $500, or I'm expecting some money to come in. Where should I put my money? It's the wrong question, right? It's where should I put my time, right? And your time should be in learning about, personal finance, right? Becoming financially literate. That is the question, right? So now, of course, you can, check out my YouTube channel. Obviously, there are others. I subscribe to several, and but you can subscribe to Think Outside the Cell, the YouTube channel, where I post every week videos like this, where we really delve into the basics of personal finance and mindset, money mindset, having an ownership mindset. That's something that I talk about all the time. It's not about the money, it's about the mindset, right? We'll make sure we're clear about that. And again, I use a framework that I've created, obviously, called the SSI Method. The SSI method is a 3-part wealth building framework that's based on 3 pillars, right? It is having a spending plan, a savings plan, and an investing plan. And so instead of relying on the government in terms of SSI, because when people hear SSI, the first thing they say, oh, you mean, oh, I know what you mean. It's, you get a check from the government every month. No. We're not relying on the government. Just the opposite. We're relying on ourselves, particularly people impacted by the criminal justice system. But I would say anybody, particularly people impacted by the criminal justice system. We don't want to rely on the government, right? When you're incarcerated, you're relying on the government, right? For everything, right? They dictate how you spend your time, where you spend your time, and all that. So that is not how what the SSI method is about. So instead, it is an economic blueprint for people who have done time. It's an economic blueprint. There is no other blueprint out there, period. There is no blueprint out there for justice impacted people. There is none, right? So I devised this 3-part wealth building framework, right, or blueprint that helps people who have little to no experience with personal finance to develop a systematic approach to becoming wealthy, a systematic approach to understanding money, relating to money, and developing healthy money habits. Again, that blueprint is the SSI method. Having a spending plan, a savings plan, and an investing plan. And in future videos, I will be breaking down each part of the plan. I just wanted to note that in prison, right, and I can only know for sure that in New York State, right, where I serve time, in terms of programs, there are no programs that focus on personal finance unless they're created by incarcerated people like myself. Again, I taught personal finance from 1995 to 2016 while in prison, and then since being home coming home in 2016, I've been teaching it out here in the community. So again, for 30 years, I've been teaching personal finance, and when I was inside throughout the entire time, there was no other program that focused on personal finance. I thought that was outrageous, given that about 90% of the people incarcerated are in prison for some money-related crime. Some money-related crime, right? Or material type of crime, right? Theft, drug selling, robberies, which is a form of theft, obviously, homicides, all those things. It's usually some, based on some argument, disputes and stuff like that, but often it is money that is a key element in the crime, right? Or a key motivation, right? Now, there are exceptions. Obviously, you have, sex offenses, usually not over money, and there are programs for people who have sex offenses. There are programs who have violent crimes. There are programs for people who have drug offenses. There are not programs, meaning mandated programs by the Department of Corrections for money, anything dealing with money. So the idea, I assume, with docs is that if you have a violent crime, then if we require that you take an anger management program, then you're all set, right? Your money problems that got you in prison in the first place, your money problems will be solved because your anger problem is solved, right? And obviously, even as I say that, it sounds silly because that's not the case. You have to get to the root causes of why people commit crimes, or why a lot of people commit crimes. And that root cause is usually something related to poverty. And poverty, while a societal issue, right? If we teach people to become financially literate, right? Teach them about how to save, how to budget, how to build credit, how to bank, how to invest, and all of those things, then they will be less likely to commit crimes, right? Because they, like me, will know that there's other ways to make money, legal ways to make money. And a lot of people a lot of people in prison want to do the right thing, meaning even before they went to prison. People feel like they have no choices, no options. And one of the things that I talked about, when it comes to money, money gives you options. Money gives you options. So it's really critical that people know how money works, know how to get money or accumulate money legally, and know how to make it work for them instead of working for money. I'll close with this. One of the collateral consequences, as they call it, one of the collateral consequences of having a felony conviction, meaning in addition to doing time, right? One of the collateral consequences of having a felony conviction, and there are millions of people all across the country who have felony convictions, right? Some people never ended up in prison, but they still, went to court and have a felony on their records. But many people did go to prison or jail. One of the collateral consequences of having a felony convictions is that it precludes or stops people from getting all sorts of jobs. It's a lot of discrimination. A lot of people, any of you who have done time and have a felony conviction, you know exactly what I mean, right? You may have earned an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or some other type of post-secondary degree and still struggle to get or keep a job. And it's not fair. It's just not fair. And often the jobs that you apply for or that people apply for are unrelated to their crime, right? So there's no connection between the crime that was committed or allegedly committed and the job you're applying for. But because we live in a punitive society, a discriminatory society, people are denied jobs over and over again. Why do I bring that up? Because when it comes to investing, right? When it comes to investing, now obviously you need to have a job, right? But when it comes to investing, there is no discrimination of that sort. There's no discrimination, right? There's no question on an application to start or open a brokerage account. There's no question about your felony or anything dealing with crime or felony conviction, right? It's basic information and your social security number, right? That's key, right? But there is no question about, have you ever been convicted of a crime? What is my point? My point is that while there are limitations, right? Unfair limitations when it comes to getting certain jobs because of your felony convictions, there are no similar or no limitations when it comes to investing. So it's no excuse. Let's get started and let's get this money.